When SAO first hit our dusty monitor screens in 2012, everyone was ecstatic about the promising future of the series. The concept of being trapped in a deadly video game felt fresh and exciting, uniting the anime community. Everyone watched it. I watched it, you watched it, even Trevor, your neighbor, also watched it.
Why, oh, why weren't you drowned at birth?
Sword Art Online was the show that gave us all these amazing moments. This one, and this one, and this one was particularly exciting for me at the time, not gonna lie. But as the series continued, something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it, but after the Aincrad Arc, the show started feeling less and less interesting. The feeling that I got from that first Minotaur fight, the lazy and cozy fishing episode, that exhilarating sensation of witnessing Asuna in her gorgeous white under, that feeling was nowhere to be found. And no other show was able to hit the same high notes of these first episodes of SAO. Sword Art Online itself wasn't able to make me feel that way anymore. I became disenchanted with Kirito, with each new arc of the story becoming more and more predictable. Sword Art Online was not able to keep the promise it gave us so hastily. The empty husk that was now Kirito was no longer relatable or interesting. The lifeless collection of dolls that was the ever-growing harem of cookie-cutter girls was, not gonna lie, they are all still very cute, but still, they were not able to fulfill the promise for adventure, growth, the excitement of discovery. The SAO I came to love was now lost, and there was nothing that could replace it. Not until after 10 years when I finally found Overgeared, a Korean web novel and later manhwa that outdid Sword Art Online in every single aspect and became everything that I wanted SAO to be. Satisfy. It's the most popular game in the world. It is a VRMMO that basically became a second reality for millions of people, where they can do almost everything and become whoever they want to be. The sole purpose of the game, as can be deciphered from the name, is to satisfy its players and give them the opportunity to experience the vast and exciting fantasy world, with the next big adventure waiting just around the corner. With the help of the greatest supercomputer Morbius... Wait, hold on. No, Morpheus, my bad. With the help of the greatest supercomputer Morpheus, new events are constantly generated in response to the player's actions, and the NPCs are so lifelike that you can barely distinguish them from regular people. Not to mention that you can actually earn real fucking money by reselling or crafting items, exchanging in-game currency, or providing services to other players. Satisfy is truly the new reality that can provide countless opportunities to those who are ready to take on the challenge. This is heaven, at least to most people. Shin Young-woo has been playing Satisfy for a few years now. At this point, this is the only thing he has going for him, although he's far from successful in the game, let alone in real life. He's in his late 20s, barely covering his crippling loans that he took on to buy a game capsule with the money that he earns from doing labor-heavy part-time jobs. He's a burden for both his parents and younger sister, who is being crushed by the responsibility to enter a good university to take care of the family after getting a well-paid job. And almost like Shin Young-woo's personal loans weren't bad enough, soon the parents themselves are also suddenly hit with a huge debt. Money. Money, 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 money. This is all that matters to Young-woo at this point. The only thing he wants is to finally hit it big in the game. He doesn't even have fun playing it anymore. Every single day he tries to complete one more quest, get one more item, waiting for one more chance. And then he finally gets it. After almost completing an S-class quest, he finds a legendary class change item, Pagma's rare book. And so, after refusing to give it to the powerful named NPC, Earl Ashur, who gave him the quest, and using the book for himself, he resets from being a level 73 warrior to a level 1 blacksmith. To be perfectly clear, Young Woo, or Grid, which is his in-game tag, became a very special, legendary blacksmith, or Pagma's successor, who plays an important role in the lore of Satisfy. Even at low levels, he can use all types of equipment, even if he doesn't meet necessary level or class requirements, although at the cost of a reduction in item stats. Grid can also design and create his own items, the only condition being that he has to manually create them without relying on automation. Soon enough, he manages to receive the necessary training from a local blacksmith NPC, sell a few higher than average quality items, and get the attention of a small but competent guild. He uses his combat and blacksmithing skills inherited from Pagma to become an irreplaceable member of the guild, and finally manages to pay his personal and family debts by selling items. When Kirito started his journey, he was already someone in a position of power.
He's a
Wife.
beater!
Wife.
Beater. Yeah, that's good. I like it.
Meanwhile, Grid had to go through many trials and tribulations to earn his place in both Satisfy and Real World. But if that was all there is to the story of Overgeared, it wouldn't be all that special. Underdog stories are common, especially in popular media. So let's talk about the thing that differentiates Overgeared from many others that came before. From the very first chapters, it is clear that Grid is not the most likable person there is. He's miserable and is so focused on money that it's actually hard to comprehend. It's to the point that after a couple dozen of chapters, scanlators even changed his nickname from Grid to Greed, which will ultimately backfire on them later, but that's spoiler territory. However, despite his sleazy and greedy nature, there's still more to Grid's character. Even in the most trying times, he went out of his way to help both other people and NPCs, who he considers to be equal to players. They have their own stories and lives, which are also finite. It's NPCs that Grid was able to establish friendships and relationships with. For quite some time, it were them who offered him their warmth and support that he was craving. And this transforms him. Slowly but surely, with the help of the newfound guild members and NPCs who became his second family at this point, he becomes someone who is able to overcome his resentment for the world and crippling greed, standing up for the weak and oppressed of both worlds, character and nobility. These are the things that put Grid above the rest, not the way he demolishes his enemies and challenges the impossible, not his status in Satisfy or in the real world, and definitely not his abilities make him who he is. It's the way he is able to form genuine human connections with other people and the transformation he goes through during the course of the story that truly make it worth following him, for us readers and the characters alike. And let me tell you, what a crazy story it is. With the Overgeared web novel still going strong at already over 1600 chapters and the manhwa getting close to 150 chapters, there is never a dull moment in the story. In a sense, Overgeared is the closest thing to a fusion story that a non-fusion story can become. At first, it's a story about a young blacksmith making his first steps in the craft and earning a little bit of recognition for his skills. Then it transforms into a tale of a warrior seeking to learn the techniques of his ancestor and achieve greater power.
I am the storm that is approaching.
Then it's a fight against greater evil, a love story, a family drama, a political thriller. It even has several tournament arcs in the form of international cybersports events. And each and every single one of these stories gets just as hype as all the others. Somehow, every single power-up, every single discovery and encounter feel exciting and, above all else, completely earned and meaningful. I don't want to spoil anything in the story, but trust me. Trust me when I say that Overgeared will certainly catch your attention, no matter how many fantasy, VRMMO, RPG novels, mangas, or manhwas you've read already. The world of Satisfy is ever evolving and is more mysterious than you might imagine at first glance. Combine that with a genuinely strong character writing that's just a tiny notch below Mushoku Tensei and ReZero, more handsome middle-aged man than in any otome game, and a story that only keeps getting better and better with each new chapter. And that's Overgeared for you, where Sword Art Online chose to reskin the concept that made it so popular at first over and over again. Overgeared embraces the excitement and satisfaction of an adventure that aims to explore everything and challenge everyone, while Kirito and his lookalikes feel stagnant in their overpoweredness and growth spurts full of bullshit. Grid's development is constant yet gradual, and his growth feels earned. And let me clarify something. There's nothing wrong with Kirito's character or SAO for that matter. Aincrad Arc will still be remembered as a cornerstone of its time for its fresh ideas and concepts, and will always be dear to the 14-year-old me. But today, at least in my eyes, Grid is the one who reigns supreme as the god and king of VRMMO. And that's where the video was supposed to end. Originally, in this segment I wanted to talk more about how Overgeared manages to create excitement and satisfaction on multiple levels of its story design, and how the progression is handled, and why it works so well in web novel format, and what lessons SEO could have learned from it. And while it's still very important to understand why is Overgeared so special, for me the reason is much more personal. At the time when SEO first released in 2012, I was relentlessly bullied at school. And it wasn't because of anything special. I was just the only blonde person in my class. And that was enough. And being the shy and sheltered kid that I was at the time, it really shook me. I couldn't handle it. How do you even learn to handle such bullshit? And that's when I first watched SAO. Kirito was this sort of protagonist who didn't take shit from anyone. He was this powerful loner who stoically endured every challenge thrown at him, and at the time I learned a lot from his example. But as the time went on, I really understood how shallow in its nature was Kirito's character. And although he helped me to endure one of the most miserable times and experiences of my life, he was unable to provide any more support for me as a person. And now, being an adult with so many responsibilities and expectations placed on my shoulders, this past year was probably one of the most miserable moments in my entire life. At one point, being unable to find a job, moving out from my parents' house and trying to achieve something in my life, to turn it around in a way that felt worthwhile, was something that I really struggled with. And that's when I first read Mushoku Tensei. This is the story that gave me enough courage to start this YouTube channel and to find enough courage to make an effort to turn my life around. And then this February, when I just began to finally feel alive for the first time in many years, doing the thing that I enjoyed doing, that seemed worthwhile, Russia announced a special operation in Ukraine, in a country just as dear and important to me. And so, in the midst of having so many bad credit card debt and some loans that I took on to cover some of my other loans that were slowly building up over the last year or so, I couldn't find enough courage and enough power within me to continue doing anything. Right now I even have to sell most of my music equipment that took me months, years to buy, just to stay alive, and also having this lingering threat over my head of being drafted into the army and potentially shooting at my relatives is something that destroyed me, is something that destroys me every time I remember about it. And so in this dire situation that I'm still in, the piece of fiction that inspired me to not lose my way, to not lose my hope for a better, brighter, and greater future was Overgeared. The example of Shin Yang-woo, the example of Grid, who did his best despite having the worst odds of succeeding and also having this burden of having crippling debt, was something that really inspired me to continue what I'm doing right now. And yes, I could talk for many hours why Overgeared is so great because of its writing, because of how the story is structured. I figured that no, this is not the reason why this show is so influential. Because the world and storytelling of Overgeared is not the reason why it surpassed Sword Art Online in my eyes. Fiction has this power, this capacity to influence people and to inspire them to do great things. And while SAO helped me at the time when I was at my lowest, when I was a teenager, it wasn't able to sustain me through my life with its basic premises and character archetypes that are no longer relatable for me. That's why ultimately the reason I'm making this video is not to tell you to go and read Overgeared, although you really should, it's a great story. But the reason I'm making this video is to tell you that fiction has power. And it doesn't matter what shows inspire you. It may be a harem show, it may be a romantic comedy, it may be a trashy, forgettable isekai that you like to watch while sitting on a toilet. It doesn't matter. As long as it's something that gives you the capacity, the strength to move forward in life and try to achieve greater heights and greater successes, that's all that matters. It's been Danon, your resident Russian otaku, and thanks for listening.